Hello, you guys. Paul Lutheran here, your ordinary Lutheran North Country guy, and we are here to get wisdom, eh? So we are looking today at Proverbs chapter 24, and I thought that chapter 24 would be a good one for me to look with you at a character sort of that comes up again and again in Proverbs. We've heard about the fool and about the mocker, and now this is another one. It's the sluggard, or in some other versions they say something like lazy bones. Okay, so it comes up a lot of times, but this is one that's kind of longer, and I thought it would be a good way to talk about the sluggard. So, chapter 24, and I'm going to start at verse 30. I passed by the field of a sluggard, and by the vineyard of the man lacking sense. And behold, it was completely overgrown with thistles, with thistles. There, its surface was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. When I saw, I reflected upon it. I looked and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and then your poverty will come as a robber, and your want like an armed man. So lazy bones can be, wonder what hit them, him or her. It says a man in this version, but anybody can be a sluggard. And they might think, well, what hit me? Because all of a sudden I don't have the things I need. Well, it might be that because for months or even years they haven't done the things that they ought to do. Now, not everybody should hear this passage the same way, because at least this is the way it looks to me, okay? There are some people that are already over diligent. They are already working too hard. And they need to not so much pay attention to this passage and pay attention to like the third commandment, which says you remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, because that's partly about rest, eh? And if a person never rests, if they don't take a day out of the week at least to lay back a little more, that's not right. It's not healthy. And one of the reasons the commandment is there is because God knows it's not healthy. But on the other hand, that person, the workaholic person, or the overzealous worker, might be lazy about something else. Sometimes, in order to avoid the work of being a good parent, maybe, or a good husband, or a good wife, the person will instead be just caught up in their work all the time, and so they're using work to be lazy. I know that sounds backwards, but I think it happens. But there are people, anyway, don't need to read this passage for themselves. And then there are the people that read it and they like to read it to point to somebody else and to say, that person is poor because they're lazy. Well, you have to be very, very careful about making that judgment, especially if you don't know the person quite well, because you don't know what all is going on in their life that might be things are not in their control. And sometimes people are poor not because they're lazy, but because they are oppressed, or because the system is not fair to them, or whatever, or some kind of illness or something. So be careful about that kind of judgment. But we can all remember that it's important to keep up with things. If you have a garden and you weed it, it's not long before you have to weed it again. If you have a yard and you mow it, it's not long before you have to mow it again. So we need to keep up with stuff. And that's part of the challenge. And if we are going to get wisdom, then we need to remember not to be lazy, but to be diligent about the things that are before us. So, I hope you come next time. Thank you for listening. And now I'm going to be diligent about trying to find how to click, because that's always, there it is.